right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sports Talk Nation. The month of September is here, and that means we are back to producing content for you here on Sports Talk Nation. And we've got 25 games to go here in the Major League Baseball season. 25 games, and the Mets only one game back. Do they have a legitimate shot at getting into the postseason? And welcome back, folks. Michael Cohen here with you on a Sports Talk Nation. Again, the Mets just one game back of the wild card as we begin play here on September 2nd. We really now get into the month of September. So let's just talk about whether the Mets have a shot here at getting in or not. And it's been really a topsy-turvy ride through the last month of August. Really, it's been that case all season for this Mets team. And that road trip that the Mets just went through, they won 7 out of 10. Looks great on paper. Went 7-3. Swept the series from the lowly Chicago White Sox. But there were a couple of games in that road trip that they let get away, and it makes you wonder whether this team is going to be able to get over the hump. Because there are a couple of things that really stick out to me that trouble me. There's also a few things that make me, or at least should make Met fans excited about the final stretch of the season. But really, you take a look at that road trip, those two losses. They lost to San Diego, a game where they were up 2-0, had a chance to win that game late, but Jose Budo imploded in that 8th inning. San Diego tied that game at 2, and then, of course, Edwin Diaz giving up the game-winning home run. And then you take a look a couple of days later where the Mets had a 5-4 lead on Arizona, and then Edwin Diaz gives up a grand slam to Corbin Carroll, and the Diamondbacks win that game. Now, I will give credit to the Mets because in each of those cases, in each of those bad losses, they came back and won ball games, and in the case of the Arizona loss, have come back and have now won 4 in a row, including sweeping that lowly Chicago White Sox team. So they have done their job. They have won games. They have won series, and they have put themselves in a great position, in spite of those losses, to be in the mix here as we begin this stretch drive. Now, what gives me reason to believe that this team can get in? And reason number one is the guy that's been leading this team really all season, and a player who has legitimate MVP credentials, and that's Francisco Lindor. .325 batting average, 6 home runs, 16 RBIs in the month of August. But not only that, you take a look at the last 2 months, hitting .301 with 15 home runs, 39 RBIs. Not only that, but playing very solid defense as well, as he always does at shortstop, and also has been a leader in the clubhouse really all season, has taken that to another level this year. Legitimate MVP candidate. And I know the National League is probably going to end up voting for Shohei Ohtani because, hey, look, he's all-world. He has the 43 home runs and 43 stolen bases, and he's Shohei Ohtani, as we all know. That's probably going to end up getting the MVP. But it cannot be ignored what Francisco Lindor has done in New York and the way he has changed his own narrative, because a lot of Met fans have kind of disrespected Lindor over the years as a player who's just maybe on the downside of his career at shortstop, and cashing in on a big multi-year contract with the Mets that's been the opinion by a lot of Met fans over the years. But without a doubt, he has been that guy. He has been the bedrock of this team over the last year, and is the reason why they're in this position. Another reason why you should be excited or optimistic for the Mets' chances, well, the fact they have Starling Marte back in this lineup, and he has been missing over the last couple of months. They have him back now in this lineup, especially in the outfield with his arm in right field. A huge plus to have him back, and he's starting to get rolling again offensively. Also, take a look at the guy they picked up at the deadline, Jesse Winker, who was really struggling out of the gate with the Mets when they first picked him up, but has really started to get going of late. He has now hit .343 overall in the month of August with the New York Mets. He's giving them that energy that the Mets knew that they would get from him when they picked him up. That's going to be one of the big reasons they got him from the Nationals, is because he is a good clubhouse guy, and he brings a lot of energy to the team. You see it in the dugout. He's pumping his fist and screaming at teammates. You saw it when he had the game-winning home run. He slams his helmet into the ground and yells back at the dugout and gets everyone excited and amped up. That's what they wanted to have when they brought him in here, and he's bringing that every single day. And not only that, he's producing and he's been swinging a very hot stick of late for this Mets lineup. So those are some of the guys on the left that have been standing out, especially over the last road trip, especially over the last several weeks for the Mets, even going back to that Baltimore series at Citi Field. Also, all season I've been saying this Mets starting pitching has been an issue. Hasn't been that much of a case lately because Sean Manaea and David Peterson have been the standouts. And it's kind of hard to believe because it felt like most of this year the Mets did not have an ace. And in many ways, they really don't have an ace, but they have two guys who have been ace-like in Manaea and Peterson. Manaea, over his last 7 starts, you go back to now July 30th. Since July 30th, this was the start against the Minnesota Twins, where he went 7 innings, gave up only 2 hits, and struck out 11. Sean Manaea has been on fire. The most runs he has given up at most in the last month now have been 3. He has pitched most consistently 7 innings in every start, with the only exception being a 3-run performance against Seattle on August 10th. He has basically pitched 7 innings in every start since that point. He has 11 wins on the year. His ERA on the year is down to 3.35, and you take a look overall, since that July 30th start, a 2.41 ERA. That is excellent. And the guy that's also been standing out, David Peterson, left-handed pitcher who's always kind of struggled with the Mets over the last few years as a young pitcher. He has caught fire in the month of August, has had the best month of his career, a 1.83 ERA in the month of August. So those are the reasons why you should be optimistic going forward. Not to mention, just take a look at this team and what they've been able to do over the course of the year. We know, obviously, you're going to get big plays out of Jose Iglesias. He had the big hit in Arizona last week. Always plays good defense. We all know that what you're going to get out of guys like, what you should get out of guys like Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso, and also what the potential is if you can get Edwin Diaz on a roll again. Yes, this team has potential to make it not just a serious run here in September, but if they end up getting to the playoffs, they're going to be a very dangerous team. At the same time, there are concerns, and I do have concerns. I mentioned Diaz just a moment ago with those 2 blown saves against San Diego and Arizona. He has struggled really all year. He's not the same pitcher he was 2 years ago. I think coming back off the injury, the knee injury from last year has certainly played a part in this. He has had some nagging injuries. He also had that suspension earlier in the year. He just hasn't gotten rolling at all this season, and an ERA that's close to 4 certainly shows that. This bullpen outside of Diaz worries me because there's a lot of guys who pitched a lot of innings. There's a lot of guys who have been somewhat inconsistent, whether it be Budo or whether it be Reed Garrett, whether it be or Adam Ottavino. Phil Maton has been somewhat consistent, been playing more consistent arms down there. Even the guy they brought in from the Marlins, Brazoban, has been just awful. They have had issues in that bullpen, and if there's going to be a situation, and you know it's going to come up, and we're going to talk about those schedules, comparing them with the other teams in a moment, this bullpen, I don't know if I can trust them in a big spot coming down a stretch drive here in the last couple weeks of the season. And also, look, this lineup, as good as some of these guys have been, like Lindor, have been very good. You know, Pete Alonso's been inconsistent really all season. I know he has 30 home runs. I know the Met fans want to have him back. And I'm going to have at some point this offseason, coming up offseason, whether the Mets make the playoffs or not, whether they should bring back Pete Alonso because he's been inconsistent. 241 batting average this year. Has highs, has lows, and sometimes when he has lows, they pretty much impact the game as far as the Mets' chances of winning that game are concerned. Also, Brandon Nimmo, been beaten up by injuries this year. 228 batting average in August, 188 batting average in July. Doesn't look like the guy who was hitting the ball with authority in May and June the way he was earlier in the year. So can he get going again as we move into September? So those are some of the concerns that I have. And also, Jose outside of Manaea and Peterson in that rotation, Jose Quintana and Luis Severino, very inconsistent out of that starting rotation. So here's the big picture, folks. Let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at that wild card standings. Okay, I'm going to pull that up right now. All right. Right now, the wild card is this. You have Arizona, San Diego, Atlanta. Those are your 3 teams in the mix right now for the wild card. The Mets are 1 game back of Atlanta for the last playoff spot. Atlanta's lost 2 in a row. They lost 2 in a row to Philadelphia. The Mets have won 4 in a row. But don't look now, because here come the Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs have won 6 in a row. They're only 2 back of the Mets and 3 back of Atlanta for that last spot. And also St. Louis kind of hanging around in there as well. But this is going to be fascinating to see how this is going to play out. I'm going to take a look now at the schedules. Now, you take a look at the Mets head to head. All right, against all these teams. Atlanta, they're 5-5 against Atlanta this year. Philadelphia, they're 2-4. The 4 teams that matter in this wild card race: San Diego, Arizona, Chicago, St. Louis. The Mets are done with all those teams. They have won their games against all those teams. They beat San Diego 5 out of 7. They beat Arizona 4 out of 7. Chicago, Mets won 4 out of 7. And St. Louis, they won 4 out of 6. So if they came to a tie, the Mets would have the tiebreaker against all those teams. Atlanta, the Mets are 5-5 against them. They have 3 games left against Atlanta towards the end of the season. The Mets have to win that series. You would think, in order to have the best shot at getting into the playoffs. But keep in mind, 7 of their games left are against the Philadelphia Phillies. That could be trouble. And those 3 games against the Milwaukee Brewers, and Brewer team that the Mets would like to get even with for that sweep earlier in the season, at the start of the year, in fact. So let's just say, for case in point, this all comes down to the Mets, the Cubs, and the Braves for that last wild card spot, right? Assuming that Arizona and San Diego, who are 3.5, 4 games ahead of the last playoff spot, are both going to get in. The Mets right now, they have the Red Sox coming up this week. They have the Reds after that on the weekend. And then you take a look at that schedule. I mentioned the 7 games against Philadelphia, the last 2 weeks of the year. 4 with the Phillies at Citi Field, the 19th through the 22nd, and then at Atlanta from the 24th to the 26th, and then at Milwaukee from the 27th to the 29th. This is not an easy schedule at all. And I know the Red Sox have been kind of, scuttling a little bit themselves at the start of the month here. Look, it's still Boston. They're trying to catch fire in the American League right now. So not an easy schedule here for the Mets to end the season. At all. Take a look at Atlanta. Let's take a look at their schedule. All right. They have... it's not that easy for them either. Look, okay, I know they get the Rockies here to start the month, but they'll have to face the Dodgers for 4 games. They go to Cincinnati, Miami. Miami they should beat up pretty easily. But then they, too, end the season tough. They get the Mets at home, and they get Kansas City, who has been on fire in the American League Central. They get them to end their season. So that's where Atlanta sees their season coming to an end. And then, as I mentioned, the Cubs. Watch out for them. They've won 6 in a row. They're red hot. Of the 3 teams battling for the last wild card, they have the easiest schedule. Why? They have the Pirates. They have a Yankee team that's been up and down. The Dodgers. Okay, Yankees and Dodgers, that's going to be tough for them. But they get the Rockies on the road. They get the Oakland A's, or Sacramento A's, Las Vegas A's, whoever you want to call them. The Nationals. And then they finish with the Reds. Now, they do, as I said, they do have a series of the Yankees and Dodgers and the Phillies. But they've been on fire. I think I saw a stat that said they scored 99 runs in the last 10 games or something like that, which is absolutely crazy. 14 runs against the Nationals the other day. Watch out for the Chicago Cubs in this wild card race. So for the Mets, they have to find a way to continue to not just play well, but they got to win these games that are in front of them. They got to take care of a series against teams like the Reds and against the Nationals. You can't afford to have a slip up there. Would you like to say you want a sweep series? Sure, it'd be great, but win series. Because it's all going to come down to those last 3 series at the end of the year from September 19th through the 29th against Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Milwaukee. Those last 10 games, 10, 11 games, it's all going to come down to that. And if the Mets can find a way to hold off, let's say, Chicago, and find a way to leapfrog over the Atlanta Braves, if the Atlanta Braves have a couple of stumbles here and there and Mets can catch them in that next to last series of the season, then maybe the Mets can get into the playoffs. And I'm not even going to get into tiebreakers and the possibility that you could have a wild card game before the wild card series. I'm not even going to go there, but that's also certainly a possibility because it could get really nutty before the season comes to a screeching halt at the end of September. So, folks, leave your thoughts below. How do you feel the Mets are going to do as far as getting into the playoffs are concerned? Before we go, one thing here. The Yankees have been, kind of this topsy-turvy team as well here over the last few months. They just lost the series to St. Louis, coming off of losing a series to Washington. A lot of people talk about Aaron Judge and Juan Soto for obvious reasons because those two guys have been the leaders in the clubhouse as far as production's concerned. But if you were looking for another player who has really contributed to the Yankees of late, look towards none other than Austin Wells, because Austin Wells has been one of the hottest players in this lineup for this Yankee team of late. They need somebody else other than Soto and Judge to be the difference maker for them. And in a way, Wells has been that guy. He's hitting .254 now, 12 home runs, 42 RBIs in a year. You take a look at his month of August. I'm going to bring this up right now. All right. Month of August, Austin Wells is hitting .325 with 4 home runs, 15 RBIs. He's had a .391 on-base percentage. For a team that has been battered with injuries, battered with inconsistency from guys like Gleyber Torres and Alex Verdugo, and Stanton's been in and out of the lineup, and you have Anthony Rizzo's been in and out of the lineup. Of course, he's been trying to rehab in Double-A Somerset lately over the last couple weeks. This is a team that needs another batter to step up, and right now Austin Wells has done that for the Yankees as they have to find a way to not just hold off Baltimore, but also try to keep themselves at the top of the wild card if they should not win that division. So a lot to play for them and the Yankees as they come towards the stretch drive of the 2024 season. So again, folks, leave your thoughts below. What do you think? We'll talk to you next time.